house waited until midnight to show its true face. The Sallie House, already a maze of creaks and shadows, suddenly felt alive. Our equipment hummed with frantic energy. EMF meters leapt into the red while the air thickened. Heavy like a brewing storm, I tightened my grip on the flashlight. Its beam trembled against the peeling wallpaper as if the darkness itself pushed back. Then it began. A sharp crash erupted upstairs. We spun toward the staircase, every instinct screaming to run. Footsteps, fast, deliberate, pounded above us, but we were alone. No one had gone upstairs. The house exhaled a gust of icy wind that smelled of rust and damp earth. My breath caught. I could see it, my own breath, curling like smoke in the beam of the flashlight, though the night outside was warm. One of our team members gasped. "Something's here," she whispered. Her sleeve lifted as if yanked by invisible fingers. 3 red lines appeared on her forearm, deep and fresh, welling tiny beads of blood. The sound of scratching filled the room, wood against wood. Yet every surface was still. We weren't dealing with a playful spirit anymore. A door at the far end of the hallway slammed shut with a violence that rattled the old glass panes. The vibration surged through the floor, knocking a camera from its tripod. The bang echoed like a gunshot, making my heart pound against my ribs. Then came the growl. Low, animal, wrong. It rumbled from the walls themselves, a sound no human throat could create. The pitch climbed until it vibrated in my skull, a resonance that made the room feel smaller, tighter, like the house was swallowing us whole. Something unseen wanted us gone. My flashlight flickered, sputtered, then died, leaving us in a suffocating blackness. The only light was the thin glow from our recorders, blinking red like distant eyes. We huddled together, each of us frozen, every sense stretched to breaking. I could hear my own pulse, feel the cold seeping through my jacket, taste metal in the air. Seconds dragged into minutes until, as suddenly as it began, silence fell. Absolute, crushing. The temperature eased, the air loosened, but the mark on our teammate's arm burned bright and undeniable. That was the moment we understood. The Sallie House didn't just host spirits, it hunted. The hallway stayed unnervingly quiet after the growl faded, but the air still felt charged, as if the house itself were holding its breath. Our equipment kept recording, the faint red lights blinking in the dark while we tried to steady ours. I could hear the wooden beams settling above us, a slow creak that made it sound like someone was still pacing the upper floor. We moved carefully toward the stairs, every step deliberate, our flashlights sweeping across peeling wallpaper and broken picture frames. The cold hadn't lifted. It clung to our skin like damp cloth, sinking through jackets and gloves. One of the cameras showed a sudden spike on the EMF meter again, sharp, almost violent, though nothing in the room had changed. A faint rustling started near the nursery door. It wasn't wind. There were no open windows. It was a soft drag, like fabric being pulled across old wood. We stopped listening. The sound grew louder, closer, until it seemed to circle us. No one spoke. Then a light tap echoed from the second-floor landing, quick and deliberate, followed by another. The rhythm was almost playful, like tiny footsteps meant to tease. Our teammate with the scratches tightened her grip on the recorder. "It's right there," she whispered. Her voice trembled but didn't break. The tap stopped. A moment later, the smell of sulfur drifted through the hallway, acrid and unmistakable. We exchanged glances. Everyone knew the stories about that smell. Without a word, we began backing toward the front door, the floorboards groaning beneath our weight. The house seemed to resist our exit, each step heavier than the last, as if the air itself thickened to slow us. When we finally reached the threshold, the outside night felt almost unreal, warmer, softer, carrying the simple sounds of crickets and distant traffic. Behind us, the house settled into silence once more, its windows dark, its secrets intact. We stood on the sidewalk, shaken and exhausted, replaying the moment when unseen. Claws had dragged across flesh, and a voice, beyond reason, had filled the halls. Even hours later, back in the safety of our vehicle, the camera equipment kept glitching, batteries draining far faster than normal. On review, faint whispers threaded through the recordings, fragments of words we couldn't quite understand. Whatever had followed us through that night hadn't stayed behind. It lingered, a presence we could still feel long after leaving the Sallie House. Back at the hotel, we laid out every piece of equipment, determined to see if the night had really been as brutal as it felt. Laptops booted, drives connected, the room filled with the soft hum of fans and the sharp click of keys. The footage opened to static for the first few minutes, perfectly normal until the hallway scene appeared. The audio track carried a faint hiss, like distant wind. We boosted the gain, and a low murmur surfaced beneath it. At first it sounded like overlapping radio signals, but the pattern sharpened, a voice slow and deliberate, repeating the same word, leave, over and over, each repetition colder than the last. One of the thermal cameras showed a sudden bloom of heat in the nursery doorway. At the exact moment we heard the taps upstairs, no one had been near that room. The outline on the screen was small, child-sized, but the edges pulsed in and out as if it were breathing. The scratch marks on our teammates' arm looked worse under the bright hotel lights. The skin around them had darkened to a deep crimson, the lines raised and hot to the touch. We documented everything, taking photos, measuring, trying to stay clinical. But the room carried the same faint sulfur smell we thought we'd left behind. Hours passed while we reviewed clip after clip. Battery indicators on our fully charged cameras dropped from green to empty in minutes. A few files refused to open at all, flashing a brief error message before vanishing from the drive. We tried again and again, but entire segments of the night had simply erased themselves. Near dawn, when fatigue made every sound sharper, a single knock echoed from the far corner of the hotel room. 3 beats, slow, deliberate. We froze. No one else occupied the adjoining rooms. The knock came again, this time closer, and the sulfur smell thickened. That was when we knew the encounter hadn't ended at the Sallie House. Whatever we disturbed had followed, carrying the darkness of that empty Kansas home straight into the early morning light. The morning sun should have brought relief, but it only highlighted how wrong everything felt. Our teammate woke with a fever, and the scratches across her arm now traced faint black edges, as if the skin itself had been burned. We packed quickly, a silent agreement to leave town before the day got any older. The drive out of Atchison was tense. Phones lost signal even on open highway, and the car's dashboard clock began to blink 12 o'clock in slow, steady pulses. No matter how many times we reset it, the display slid back to midnight, the exact time the growl had first erupted in the house. Halfway to Kansas City, a deep vibration rattled the rear seats. At first we blamed the road, but the pavement was smooth. The steering wheel shuddered under my hands, then went still. A faint whisper seeped from the speakers even though the radio was off. A soft repetition of that same single word we'd heard on the recordings, leave. We stopped at a gas station to catch our breath. When the engine cut, the whispering faded, but the air around the car carried a sharp metallic scent. I checked the trunk for any loose gear. Everything was in place, untouched. The heat of the late morning sun pressed down, yet a cold draft slid across my neck like an unseen breath. Back on the road, we spoke little. Each mile put distance between us and the Sallie House, but the sense of being followed refused to ease. In the rearview mirror, the horizon shimmered with summer haze. Yet every now and then I caught the fleeting shape of a small figure, standing at the shoulder, motionless, always just behind. By the time we reached the airport, the dashboard clock still pulsed midnight. None of the video files would copy to a backup drive. Even the hotel room knock, captured on 2 recorders, played only as empty static. It felt as if the night itself was erasing proof of what happened. When we finally boarded the plane, exhaustion settled in, but none of us slept. The cabin lights dimmed and the engines roared, and beneath that steady mechanical sound came one last faint echo, impossible to tell if it was memory or something more. Soft, childlike, close to my ear. Leave. We left Kansas behind, but the sense of being watched traveled with us. A quiet reminder that the encounter at the Sallie House had no clean ending and no clear boundary. Weeks passed, yet the night never truly ended for any of us. Back home, small disturbances began to thread through ordinary days, doors unlatching on their own, lights dimming for a heartbeat before flaring back to life. At first we blamed faulty wiring, drafts, anything logical. But the pattern grew too precise. The teammate who'd been scratched reported waking at exactly 12:00 a.m. each night. No alarm, no sound, just a sudden snap into consciousness. The room heavy with the same cold we'd felt in the Sallie House. She described whispers just beyond hearing, as if a child played at the edge of her dreams. Our equipment didn't fare better. Hard drives that held our original footage kept failing. Even brand new replacements. Files corrupted in the same way. The final hours of the investigation vanishing first, then the rest unraveling into static. Technicians we hired found no explanation. One evening, while reviewing the few clips that survived, I noticed a fleeting silhouette reflected in a window, a small figure standing behind us during the hallway sequence, right before the scratches appeared. None of us had been in that position. The shape was faint, child-sized, but its outline was jagged, like smoke curling into claws. Sleep grew elusive. I'd wake to the scent of sulfur lingering in the room, to the soft click of floorboards as if someone walked just beyond the door. Friends said I looked pale, distant. I stopped telling them about the late-night knocks, the faint tapping on the walls that always came in threes. Eventually, we reached out to a local paranormal researcher. After listening to our account, he only nodded and warned that some places don't just hold energy, they attach. His advice was simple: cleanse our homes, keep records of every incident, and never return to the Sallie House. We followed his instructions, burning sage, playing low prayers on loop, documenting each disturbance. The activity eased but never disappeared. A month later, during a final review of our gear, the EMF meter we hadn't touched in weeks powered on by itself. Its light glowed red, steady and unyielding. As the room grew cold enough to mist our breath, that was when we accepted the truth we'd been avoiding. Our night inside the Sallie House hadn't ended at dawn, or in the hotel, or even on the flight home. Whatever watched us in that Kansas hallway had found a way to stay. It lingers still, silent and patient, reminding us that some doors never fully close once you step through them.